Hi, Dave here, and today we're going to check out the work of Liang Mark. He is a concept artist based in Shanghai, China, and he's mostly an environment artist, I think. He does have a few character designs, but based on his portfolio, he's more into the whole environment, atmosphere, scenery types of concepts. And I do like the way he paints. It's a bit opaque, very graphical in a way. He's very similar to Jordan Grimmer and John Park, I think. I think I could categorize them in the same category. Fuck. No shit. And yeah, and you can tell by the way he does his environments, it's very graphical, like big shapes, and then he'll refine it as he goes. What's so cool about him is that he does show his breakdowns in kind of image form. Like he'll show the line sketch or the kind of the basic sketch, and then he'll show the build up, right? Kind of like this one, right? He'll start out with a pencil-esque sketch, right? And then from there he'll just do things layer by layer, and then eventually it you can tell by his work, it's very, I think it does separate his layers just to be safe, right? But you can bring it to a very kind of almost rendered kind of look. You can still see the shapes of his strokes often. I mean, you can tell the main silhouette, the edges are kind of cut, and I'm pretty sure that's because of his layering kind of system. But what he paints within that silhouette is more like there's more layers or more shapes within shapes, so it gets even more refined in a way, but it's not rendered in a rendered kind of sense, because you can still see like the shapes of these strokes. So it's not super fine of an illustration, but it's definitely more defined, right? And again, lots of brush variety. I think it does sometimes use the mixer brush. So there is some basic kind of layering there involved, but he can often dive deep onto specific areas to kind of define it a bit more, right? And what's so cool is that in the end his work does feel like, I mean, if you kind of zoom in you can see the brush strokes, right? But if you kind of see things from afar, it looks kind of complete and almost like a very fine type of illustration. But I do like the way his paintings look in the end, where you can still see the brush strokes, right? What makes it way more, or very, very presentable, is the fact that it's kind of finished in a way. Like it's meant to be not refined. Like the style works with the illustration, you know what I mean? I mean, look at the way he does the clouds here. Very, very impressionistic, very, very energetic, right? And even the way he did like the mountains in the background, you can still see the way he did the highlights. Very, very simply done. And he has a variation of techniques when doing his pieces, and you can tell by the way he kind of breaks down the kind of the step-by-step process here. Sometimes it's a line sketch, sometimes he'll start with like shapes. Now in this case it's more of like a graphical ink sketch where you can see the shadows here, and I think this was done in 2D, but you know, according to the description here, he kind of tagged it as digital 2D, but it does look like 3D, right? I think it's because of the textures and the way he did the lighting. It seems kind of like it was done in 3D. You can tell he spent most of his time with this kind of rusted mechanical hand, right? And you can tell in the background here, he kind of simplified the clouds, and they're pretty epic looking, but you can definitely see the brush strokes. I think most of his time was spent here in the hand, right? In the arm. Look at the way he did the water as well, right? He was able to show or kind of give the impression of the water, right? Of the reflections and shit. And he just painted it, right? Which is pretty cool. And a lot of his kind of beginning phases really do start out as kind of graphical sketches, right? Sometimes he'll skip the line sketch, I think, because I've seen some of his pieces where he uses a very simple like ellipse kind of brush, you know, and then he just kind of adds the texture later on within those kind of basic shapes, right? So we have a couple of daily sketches here, right? There's a bit of photo bashing, I think, involved, but it's a great time saver, right? So here you can see like another realm, this kind of gateway. You can see the space dude, right? Maybe something is being spilled. I mean, look at the energy of this glowing part here, and even the way the lighting was done for this spaceman, right? This astronaut, spaceman, fuck, right? It's so energetic, and a lot of his paintings look full, you know what I mean, in terms of color. Like there are no empty spaces. Like in terms of composition, they look great as well, right? You're seeing this from above. Obviously the perspective is being skewed a bit to make it a bit more dynamic, right? And again, look at the graphic shapes here. This silhouette is just one. This is one shape, one big shape. And then within those shapes, it's he does change the hues a bit. Like there's a bit of variation. You can see some browns, some blues, right? Some greens. It's not too strong, but it's there. It makes it more complete, right? And it kind of fits it all falls under the warm category here. The only thing that's fairly cool here is the background a bit, the bluish thing, and then this green right here. You can see it being reflected also, or being shown in these machines here, right? So a bit of layering does help to make things more efficient, right? Look at how he did this. He used a very simple. I'm guessing he also does use the lasso tool a lot to kind of make these big selections, and then within those shapes, he'll start painting within them, right? And then over time, he'll start adding the textures, the painting, the paint strokes, right? And then eventually it becomes like this, right? And it looks pretty cool. I mean, look at how basic this thing is. But over time, it becomes more like you can always add the hue variety, the textures, the artistry of it later on. You can start using the mixer brush also later on, right? But in the beginning, you should establish like the main compositional elements, right? If you get that right, everything else kind of just complements this initial thing. Some more random sketches here, right? Very, very loose and incomplete. It looks almost like a collage, I think. Oh, he does have like a few character designs, and they look pretty cool. Like he does have the same technique. And again, you can see the shapes of his brushstrokes. Very, very opaque. And a bit of color dynamics here with the apply per tip on. I'm guessing it's the brightness option turned on, right? I mean, look at now these ones don't have too much texture. Like he does have that opaque look to it, like that opaque clean look, almost like a gouache painting. If you've seen traditional gouache paintings, they tend to show off the brush strokes, like the way the brush, like it's not going to be super rendered like how oil paintings are done generally, you know. So I do see that kind of reliance on shape in his work. Not just in terms of like the main silhouettes or the main kind of graphical compositional shapes, but like within those things, you can see like the shapes and shit, like more shapes, right? In the way it's rendered, I guess, right? I mean, look at that. It's super interesting to look at. And it's a great way to save time. It's not necessarily impressionistic, but it's not fully rendered. It's a bit, it's a bit impressionistic, I guess. But I think it's because of the edges again. If the edges are kind of clean, it does look more finished in a way, I think. So we have a few studies here, I think. Look at the hue variety in the ground. The greens, the yellows, the blues. It looks amazing. I think this is a snapshot from some kind of film. Oh, simple black and white sketch, and then he probably layered things to make it safe. And then over time, he just kind of painted within those established big shapes, right? Like, you can tell he has like a legitimate, reliable painting process. I love this one, right? Look at the complementary thing going on here. It's not just complementary, it's kind of like it has the reds, the blues, and the yellows, right? A bit of greens in the background, but if you include like the entire color spectrum in your painting, obviously not all of them will be in the same kind of saturation or with the same kind of brightness. But if you include the whole spectrum, it does make your paintings look more complete, right? Even if there's not enough detail or not too much detail in your like piece, because of the colors, it looks kind of packed and full, right? So there's hue variety, there's brush variety. I mean, look at the texture, right? So heavy on the silhouettes, and then you can see the shapes in terms of the attire is kind of separated from the other parts, and then it also involves lighting a bit, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, you can already tell some kind of story with this kind of painting approach, right? Again, it doesn't have to be fully complete as a painting to make it make sense. Same thing for this piece. I mean, look at the how it's separate. The edges are clear, so layering things does have its advantage, especially for you or for me or for artists that are a bit more messy. Maybe once in a while it's good to add a few layers, right? Especially if it's a very important part of a painting. It's, you know, it's good to be safe a bit. Oh, very, very opaque again. It's a bit yeah, it's opaque. Maybe he does sharpen it in the end after he's done painting to kind of make it a bit crispier, right? This one reminds me of Feng Zhu a bit, like the way Feng Zhu paints his mountains, right? The way he does his rocks. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Now here you can actually see him use some photo bashing techniques here, but it's well blended, right? And I do think he does sharpen it a bit. And although Feng Zhu would have used his famous flat brush, but sometimes Feng Zhu uses it's kind of like an opaque brush. I'm seeing him use it a couple of times along with his flat brush. But that's pretty cool, right? Am I right? Look at how simple this thing is. No, this one is a bit stylized. You can tell by the way the trees are done. And it's how it's very, very graphical, and the perspective is definitely super skewed. But yeah, amazing. Ooh, meh. So we have a shepherd here, right, with this big ass tree, and look at the way he did the clouds. It's very similar to Jordan Grimmer, right? Very, very graphical looking clouds. And there's also this shit. I forgot the other guy's name, but they have similar kind of sharp edged clouds. Texture, lots of texture. And he does sometimes start paintings with this brush. It's like a simple ellipse brush that's flat, and this one does have a bit of opacity in it, but sometimes he'll go straight in for like a very, very non-transparent or a brush without opacity, basically. That's kind of an ellipse or a flat brush, and then that's how he starts his paintings, to kind of establish the major shapes, and then eventually he'll just paint within that using more textured looking brushes, right? Although for this thing right here, I think this was more of a study maybe, because you can see a bit of opacity in them, right? Again, look at the sharpness of the edges here, right? It's a very efficient way of painting. I would recommend checking out the work of John Park as well, right? Because they have like similar techniques and shit. And look at this. Reminds me of shit. What's his name? Mikhail Sotriuk. Like he has a very kind of flat style, right? I can't remember his full name, but I think it's Mikhail Sotriuk or something. He has a very interesting style, very unique. Like he's the only one that kind of can pull it off really well, or is pretty well known for that kind of flat style. Awesome. So this guy's fishing. I'm a little yellow fish in the deep blue sea. Somebody help me. Alright, you can see his use of a very simple ellipse brush, right? Maybe with a bit of lasso tool involved, but a bit of photo textures, photo bashing maybe in the beginning to kind of get some colors and shit. And yeah, right, he'll paint a silhouette with the help of a lasso tool, and then within that shape, he'll start painting in the values or the different hues, right, to make even more shapes. It's a very efficient way of painting, and what's so cool if you kind of layer things, you can kind of move things around, expand things. Right, yeah. And I recommend checking out the archive I did of Amir Zan, because I did kind of show a piece where you don't even have to watch the video, just go to the links or the description and check out one of the tutorials of his concerning the kind of scout mech, and you can see him use or demonstrate why layering things is kind of important or can help you, because you can change things as you go, and if you kind of layer things, you do have that leeway to make more or to make quicker changes, right? He did spend more time layering this one, or painting this helmet here. You can see a bit of texture involved, or the suggestion of reflection, right? And even this kind of hoodie, right? Very, very flat, very, very graphical approach. I mean, right? Some kind of UFO, maybe. And what's so cool is you can still see the brush strokes, right? It looks pretty cool. Now this one's more, it's not very layered, but you can tell he's very opaque in this sense, like very raw, very direct. And if he does layer things, it can become like this, you know, where he just kind of plans things out a bit more. This one, I'm guessing this is more of like a quick sketch concept, or maybe a study, maybe. Shit, right? And look at how there's a variety of values and hues within major silhouettes, right? You can see a bit of brown here, like a red brown, a basic brown, a green thing, right? It looks full, right? Even the buildings in the background, they have a bit of green in them. Look at how it looks kind of complete and kind of filled up, right? I think Li Xingyan has like a couple of tutorials on this on his YouTube channel, so you could check that out. Because he does have like a lot of, like he kind of includes the full, well maybe not, but his work tends to look full, right? I don't even know, but he does have a lot of color tutorials on his YouTube channel, so yeah. Great rocks here. You can see some greens, some yellows, right? Look at that! Look at the amount of, the entire color spectrum is in this kind of skeleton thing, right? Look at the atmosphere here, right? So these guys are kind of, in like struggling, keeping the boat afloat perhaps, right? I think. The edges are super strong, very, very graphical again, and you can see the painting strokes. He's very impressionistic within graphical shapes. Whoa! Shit. I mean, right? Okay, let's move on. Again, strong shapes here. Oh, I think he did get this, he photo bashed in like a bird part here, but it's blended well. Kind of like, Liang or Yankee. Look at that. Amazing. Some more concepts here, some daily sketches of his. He has a lot of, oh look at that. Look at this hardly has texture. He used a very simple kind of flat ellipse kind of brush. and focus more on the very he doesn't need to use like textured brushes, you know? Like it works. Like it shows how he's a master of composition. You know, he doesn't really need like the best brushes. He can pull it off with a simple ellipse kind of brush, right? Without texture even. Right? I think he did use, it gets more opaque here, but maybe in this area you can see a bit of opacity kind of build up. Who knows, but I mean, look at the composition. It looks amazing. Oh, Egyptian area thingy, right? Because pyramids. So here it's I think he did layer it a bit. Who knows? And then over time you can it builds up, right? It's not that complicated. And again, he has like a solid kind of step. It does vary a bit between different phases, but he has like a general approach, a very standard general approach. It's graphical. It's probably going to have texture, and it's going to look amazing in the end. Look at how he started this painting, right? Very big graphical shapes. Like if you zoom out or step back a bit, you can already kind of get the feel of this whole scene. And then he just kind of painted within that, or maybe added some textures, photo textures maybe, or some painting, or maybe he just painted it in. And then he just refined it more, defining the edges even more, adding more variation in values and in hues. And then he'll add some finishing touches, right? Or I think he did add this whole thing here as an additional kind of element, right? To kind of help guide the eye. You can see the path here and the boom, path here, boom, right? Awesome. Very graphical approach again. Ugh. Right? Now here he did start with a line sketch with a bit of shadow in it. And then I think he also layers his coloring phase just to be safe. And then from there he'll paint within those major shapes. Ooh, look at that. Am I right? Grrr. More studies, more daily sketches. It says here it was done in 1.4 hours. So I'm not sure if all of these, I'm guessing each one was about done in 1 hour and a half. I think. Right? He has a lot of these. I mean, he has more like 3D stuff, but obviously since I'm a 2D, mostly a 2D artist, these will appeal to me the most, right? Again, very simple shapes. He'll paint within those shapes, adding the textures and shit, and then more value and hue variation, and then more definition or extra kind of refinement, right? Right? So we have more character concepts here, right? So here he does use a bit of photo bashing and some basic kind of paint overs, right? It's still heavy on the shapes, right? Strong silhouettes plus the shapes look fucking amazing within those shapes, right? So we have a lot of interesting thumbnails here. I mean, look at how unique each one is. Am I right? Ugh, I think this was based off of his plate or something, or maybe some random photo. Inspiration from pitaya and yogurt. What is pitaya? Fuck. Ignorant. Oh, he even added some like slight pinks in the clouds, right? Yeah. I mean, look at the variation, the variety, right? The variety, right? In like the red parts here, very strong shapes, right? Very graphical, but the texture, the variation in terms of hues and values, it's so pretty. So that's it for this art review of Liang Mark. He does have an Instagram, I think, so you can follow him there, and obviously follow him on ArtStation and check out his, like, he posts like batches of his sketches, or sketch batches, right? Or sketch dumps. Anyway, Thank you for watching. Keep drawing, keep painting, and stay free.